And here we continue with our journey of stories of resilience, unity, and the power of our Constitution. Today, our host shares how our Constitution can empower us and what we can do to safeguard against brazen mutilation of this supreme law.
So why the Constitution is important is because it's the guiding book. If you were religious, you'd say it's the Bible. It's the Bible that forms the basis on which everything is built. For example, you need laws on how to live with each other. You need laws on how to operate with each other. You need laws on how to work in the workplace with others. You need laws on how to treat people. That's why now you have those laws that tell you and give you the parameters in which you can contract with other people in society. And also, most importantly, in which the state itself can work with the citizenry, and the state can at least know its bound, its limits. Because if the state is not limited, that's when you'll have a lot of abuses of human rights. I have to say it that every right is important. We can say broadly that there are no rights that are more important than the other, but they all play a part in creating a just society, in creating a peaceful society. So they all play a part. And we are very happy, if we talk about the right of life, that the death sentence has just been abolished. And Veritas worked very hard for the past decades to have that. So that is following on the right to life, because we can't say we have the right to life, but we're also killing people, because then what are we saying then about that right? I will give an example of Kenya. Our constitution is interestingly twinned with the Kenyan constitution. It's almost, they almost mirror, mirrors of each other. But you'll find that in Kenya, they are very aware of their constitution. They have this spirit of constitutionalism that's admirable. First time, the Kenyan government wanted to change the constitution. They haven't really been able to do it. It's always been very hard. People were up in arms. They protested because it should be very difficult to amend a constitution. So the comparison I want to just highlight is that we are not as active. Look at how much our constitution has been changed since amended since 2013 when it came into being. It's seen two constitutional amendments, right? The first one, they were amending terms for judges and how an appointment of them, right? But then the second one, the second constitutional amendment, it took care of 27 amendments. They changed the constitution 27 different ways, but in one sweeping constitutional amendment. And so that's so fundamental. And we didn't really take a part. We didn't really oppose that as much as we're supposed to do, because that is egregious, if in many ways, to just tinker with the constitution. So if we were more active and if our state was more responsible, I think it would really go a long way, because we really need to protect our constitution and defend it, because we don't create this constitution for us. We create it for generations to come. But if we create it, then we start dismantling it, then what are we doing? In our lifetime, we've created it, we've dismantled it. So we are not really building our nation if we do that. We really need to consider it as a sacred document. And that shouldn't be so easy to just manipulate and change and agree. And that's not what we should be doing with constitutions. Okay, it can be done, I think, in two ways. The first one is obviously to translate into minority languages in those communities, as you said, because we need to speak to people in the language they understand, in their own language, because we can't be talking at them. We need to be talking to them. We need to be talking with them. So if we are in a marginalized community, maybe down deep in Chikombedzi, where they speak Changan, we should actually have the constitution translated into that, so that when we are talking with them, we're talking to them, we're talking with them, talking together. Then one of the ways is through just organically. We do it organically. We do it from the grassroots. We teach children, which we already do. I mean, it's quite brilliant that if you look at the ZINSEC syllabus, O level, A level, they actually do teach the constitution in their heritage and family studies. It's quite expansive. It's only that the teachers complain that there isn't that much time in the syllabus, but it's just a good thing that it's actually there. They do teach those rights, they do teach those freedoms, they do teach those responsibilities from a young age. So I think if we dedicate more resources, not just to teaching in the classroom, but if the Ministry of Education, which it does amazingly enough, it does have sometimes sponsor some of the programs to go into schools. I know they once sponsored a quiz, sort of like a program. Then they have essay writing competitions on various aspects of the Constitution. Because if you teach a child, they'll grow up with it, and perhaps in the future we'll have more engaged and more informed citizens, because they've been taught the Constitution at school. So that's how we can do it. Civic society, working in one, they should also just make sure that every civic organization has a budget for that. When you're doing your budgeting, always just have that allocation for civic education. I think that's something that we now need to start doing, because we need to just keep promoting the Constitution. Yes. And also using those organs within the Constitution. If you look at Chapter 12, we should also just be using those organizations: the Human Rights Commission, the Media Commission, the Gender Commission, the Zimbabwe Election Commission. We should be using them more, approaching them more, making them work, asking them what they're doing about this, complaining when something is not right to those organizations. But if we sit back, everything will just sit back. I think it will be the Zimbabwe we want. It would really look like the Zimbabwe you want, the Zimbabwe I want. It will be a Zimbabwe that is lawful, a lawful country. It will be a Zimbabwe where the state respects and protects people's rights, where the state is not arbitrarily imprisoning people, where the state is actually fixing the economy in ways that it should, because in order to protect people's rights. So you'd have a Zimbabwe where even health, we'd have a Zimbabwe where our hospitals are functioning. We'd have a Zimbabwe where women are not dying just because they're trying to give birth. We'll have a Zimbabwe that has fewer maternal deaths than it does. We'd have a Zimbabwe where children are going to school. I think we'd just have generally more development, social development, economic development, cultural development. We just have a Zimbabwe that we want. Because if you just group any two Zimbabweans anyway, they're just complaining about the economy, about the politics, about everything. We just want a Zimbabwe where people are just more creative, a Zimbabwe that leaves Zimbabweans room for creativity. Because right now, because so many of our rights are being violated, like provision of water, sanitation, things like that, we spend more of our time just trying to chase those basic services. That's just a diminution of dignity. But we're sort of like now used to that. You'll have a Zimbabwe where people go home and there's no electricity. But then now, If those things are provided, you have time to get home and be more creative, and also enter this digital space, and also be doing these AI things and developing cars, developing phones from Zimbabwe, etc. That young people should actually be doing. But right now they can't do that. They're busy looking for water. I saw these young people with tins of in the avenues, and I said, oh no, this is so sad.
Thank you for watching this episode of We the People TV, a product of the Zimbabwe Constitutional Movement, hosted by Zim Rights Live.